This conference will now be recorded.
This first webinar we're doing together with the European Investment Bank, and as you can see on the title, it's about European Investment Bank products for photonics startups and SMEs. Before we start, I would like to share with you the, let's say, webinar etiquette or some rules in order to make it productive. First, we would like to ask you to put yourself on mute and also to switch off the video. And after the presentation of Alberto Casarati, or also during the presentation, you can ask questions, and there is a chat function in the upper right corner where you can just put your question. We will collect them and we will present them, and we will later on ask Alberto to respond to it. Overall, the webinar is scheduled for about 30 minutes. So we want to make it short and crisp. And after the webinar, you will receive a link to a feedback survey where we ask you to respond to it so that we can improve our services. So let's start. Of course, I welcome you, but I also welcome our guest. It's Alberto Casarati. It's the Innovation Finance Advisor at the European Investment Bank. The Innovation Finance Advisory Division of the European Investment Bank. And Alberto is quite experienced in providing advisory support to high-tech companies, and we would like to benefit from this experience and also want to get an overview of the services offered, the products offered by the European Investment Bank, but also what is currently planned, also in relation to COVID, for instance. And this first webinar is meant as a, let's say, overview of activities that are going on, and subsequently we would like to do a more deep dive into individual products which may be relevant for you. So before we start, of course, you could ask the question, why would the European Investment Bank care about the photonics industry? And there was a study of the European Investment Bank and the European Commission which clearly identified that photonics is one of the key digital technologies for the digital transformation of Europe. It also analyzed the fact that there is difficulty in Europe for financing photonics companies and bringing them through the so-called value of death. So from demonstration scale to commercialization. And as a result, it was concluded that there is a clear need for an EU intervention to improve funding available for European photonics companies. So you see that on the screen. And now, of course, with COVID-19, this brings a new urgency to the issue overall. So with that, I would like to conclude my short introduction. And I would like to hand over to Alberto to start his presentation. Welcome, Alberto. So,
Hello, can you hear me now?
yes, we hear very well.
Hi, thank you very much for the introduction. This is Alberto Casarati. I'm gonna try to share my screen with everybody so I can present my brief presentations, and then I'll be happy to turn on my camera and take the questions. Just give me 1 sec to find the relevant screen, and we'll be on the go. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, So, good morning again to everyone, or good afternoon. This is Alberto Casorati. I work at the European Investment Bank. Today, I will cover four main topics in my presentation. I will give an introduction of my team, the Innovation Finance Advisory, what we do and what we offer. I will then cover a product that is tailored to innovative companies at EIB called the Venture Debt. And then I will cover the European Innovation Council pilot, which is an initiative of the European Commission, where EIB is involved as an investment advisor to the European Innovation Council, and is quite complementary to the activities that the EIB does. And finally, given the situation that we're all living in, I will cover a bit what the EIB is planning to do as a response to the current emergency on COVID-19. I'll be happy to take any questions. Just for people to know, I cannot see the chat, so I'll answer the questions at the end of the presentation, if that's okay. So starting with Innovation Finance Advisory. Innovation Finance Advisory is an initiative of the European Commission and the European Investment Bank. We do two main activities. We help innovative projects to improve their bankability, and with a target to basically improve their chances of getting a financing with EIB. So we'll be looking at the materials and try to understand how the company fits within the offering of the EIB, and try to guide them through the process to make their chances as higher as possible. The second activity is more a macro activities that we do with in very close cooperation with the European Commission, and is more focused on sectorial assessment, so market studies, with a focus on understanding access to finance issues in these specific sectors, understands what are the funding gaps that SMEs are facing in these sectors, and young companies are facing in these sectors, and based on that develop a set of recommendations and potential solutions. So we have been quite active in the space of digital economy, both on the project side as well as on the market study side. So on the project side, we have advised companies in the digital sector, from the photonics to IoT to data centers to AR, VR companies. We have worked with governments such as the government of Ireland and Portugal to help them to develop their strategies and potential financial instruments around the topic of digitalization of SMEs. And in the space of market studies, we have been working on various assignments related to digital economy, including the study that was mentioned at the beginning by Marcos on photonics and microelectronics, but we have also done other studies on high performance computers. We recently published a study dedicated to digital innovation hubs and the digitalization of SMEs. Well, actually, we published the executive summary. The full report will be published a bit later, probably next month. And we are currently working on two additional studies focused on 5G, AI, and blockchain. So this is a bit what we do. More specifically on the project support, so what we do for companies in particular, we come in a bit upstream compared to the lending team at EIB. We help companies with understanding the EIB machine a bit better, how the process works. We help them with their investor materials, so we will look at their business plans, at their financial models. We do an assessment of their assumptions and suggest ways to improve this documentation in order to improve their either equity story or credit story, in order to overall improve their access to finance chances and their likelihood of potentially get any financing from EIB. Our activities are completely independent from the lending team. So even if we support a company for our advisory activity, there is no guarantee that there will be a financing later on down the process. And we provide these services for free. So companies that are interested in receiving some support from us, they can get in touch, and we can understand if we are in a position to help them or not, and we will be happy to help companies that we see have potential for a financing with EIB. So this is a bit about what we do. Very quickly overview. Now I will move to more the financing instruments available at EIB. So here we are talking. So far, I've been talking about the advisory service, but as I said, they come a bit upstream compared to the lending activity of the bank. And now I'll be focusing on the lending activity, which is probably still the core activity of the bank. Advisory is obviously a more recent activity that has only been included in the last few years. So on the financing side, the EIB group, which includes also the European Investment Bank, has a number of products that tries to cover all the life cycles of a company, from the very early stage to the very end, to the maturity stage of a company. We do that with instruments that are direct. So, for example, a direct loan from EIB to a company, but we also do that with indirect instruments where we use financial intermediaries. These financial intermediaries can be, for example, venture capital funds, or they can be, for example, traditional banks like UniCredit in Italy or BNP Paribas in France, Deutsche Bank in Germany. So the usual banks, but in many cases will be your house banks, or where you will have probably your bank account. In the very early stage of the life of the company, so when we are still in the startup phase, seed stage, this is mainly covered by our subsidiary, the European Investment Fund. They operate as fund of funds, which means that their products are all indirect products. What they do is they invest in VC funds, they invest in tech transfer funds, and they invest in private equity funds that are focused on SMEs and mid-caps to improve basically the availability of funding in Europe in order to then indirectly support SMEs and young companies in the very early stage of their activity. As we move on to a more mature company, so when a company moves out from the growth stage, from the startup phase, and it moves into the growth stage, then we have what we call the venture debt product. This is a direct product that is directly offered by the European Investment Bank. It's a product that targets innovative companies that are coming out from a startup phase, but they're still in a very much growth stage. I will cover this in a bit more detail in a few minutes. And for the wider population of SMEs that might not be innovative, but they are more traditional SMEs, we also provide indirect instruments in the form of guarantees, which are mainly provided by our colleagues at the European Investment Fund, and intermediate loans that are provided more directly by the European Investment Bank. These are basically financing and guarantees that are offered to banks and other institutions, such as, for example, leasing companies, and more recently also fintechs, such as Funding Circle, where basically we we offer them guarantees or very competitive loans where they can use them to provide financing to SMEs and transfer some of these benefits to their final customers. So these are the two main activities that we do in the context of SMEs and mid-caps. So we work with the venture debt product, that is direct instruments mainly targeting innovative companies. And then we have indirect instruments, that is more for the wider population of SMEs, and is done in the form of guarantees or intermediate loans. And then for the mature stage, when you have larger companies, here we also have direct loan financing, which are mainly focused on funding research and development and innovation of larger companies. So this is the big picture of what is the EIB offering in terms of financing. I will now dive into the venture debt, given my understanding of the audience today. This is probably the product that is most interesting for the companies here today. The venture debt product is, as I said, is an instrument that comes for the growth stage of a company. So usually these are companies that are coming out from a startup phase, but they are generally not fully established. They are already probably generating revenues, but they're still loss making. They don't have sufficient cash flow generation to support their investments, and they still see high potential growth in the near future. So they will need significant investments to be able to tap this potential, and that's where the venture debt comes in. So as you can see in these slides, it comes in between the venture capital phase and the bank debt phase. Is an instrument that is really in the middle of a development of a company. So who is for this product? So we, as I said, is mainly for innovative companies. These are usually startups and mid-caps with less than 3,000 employees. Typically, as I said, these companies are coming out from the startup phase, so they have already raised equity from venture capitalists. So they are generally at Series B or Series C's of their fundraising. They have generally a well-established, they have a sustainable business model. So they're already proven, for example, their product, they're already generating revenues. But as I said, they generally are still loss-making at this phase. And they obviously have their investments focused in the EU. We cannot finance anything outside the EU with this product. The structure of this product. So this product comes usually in smaller tickets for EIB. It starts from a minimum ticket of 7.5 million, and it can go up to 50 million. The key advantages of these instruments is that they usually offer long availability periods, so companies can have up to 30 months before they can draw down, but they know that the money is there for them and is set aside for them. This product has quite long maturity. It goes up to 4 to 6 years from disbursement, and typically is structured as a bullet. So it means that for 4 to 6 years you don't have to repay anything. You just focus on growing the business, and the repayment will only take place at the end of the maturity of the loan. It's because of the nature of this financing that is obviously a higher risk than a commercial loan, given the profile of the companies that we are financing. The remuneration typically comes in two forms. There is more of a traditional interest payment that can be paid cash or can be paid in kind, and there is more of what I would call upside potential for EIB. that comes usually in the form of warrants. So we will take some warrants on the company, and assuming that the company will be successful, this will be part of the remuneration that the EIB will receive to cover the additional risk that we are taking here compared to traditional loans. So what are the benefits of these products? We can look at the different stakeholders. From a company perspective, these obviously offer the possibility to work with EIB, which offer a quality stamp, and add credibility to the business, and really can help company then to raise other financing from other sources. It gives a sort of tranquility to the company, time to focus on their business rather than just going out every 6 months for looking for new cash. And it gives you the opportunity to have a stable and reliable source of capital, given the AAA rating of EIB. Is also attractive for the founders compared to a traditional equity investment from a VCs. You have less dilution. As I said, we take warrants, but this will be much less compared to the equity that you will need to give to a potential VCs, and is more hand-off approach. So we usually don't sit on the board, and we are not involved with the management of the company. It's also attractive for your investor base generally, because obviously it's as for the founders, you reduce the dilution. For the existing investors, it's complementary to the equity investment, and it's a way to improve the returns for your investors. This is a bit of overview of the venture debt activity. I think what is worth to take out of this slide is that our colleagues are very busy in this sector. They review a lot of cases every year, and the success rate is there is a lot of demand for this product, and of course we only look to sign the projects that are showing the highest potentials. So today we have a portfolio of 91 operations, more or less, with a portfolio of 2 billion in terms of euro amount. And this has a meaningful impact both in terms of creations of work and investments immobilized, as you can see on the right side of the slide. This is just to give you a sense of what we're talking about. This is the portfolio, some names from the portfolio. As you can see, it's a very diversified portfolio. It goes from fiber optics to software, to clean tech, to fintech, medtech, and also companies in the farm industry. So there is no sector exclusion here, apart from sectors such as gambling or military activities, defense. But basically the portfolio is really, the team is really open to consider any type of technology that shows high innovation, high potential in many sectors, and as well as in many countries. I will now cover a bit the European Innovation Council pilot. As I said, this is something that we consider very complementary to what the EIB does. Is an initiative of the European Commission, so it's not per se an instrument of EIB. It's managed by the European Commission directly, but it's really something that can be considered complementary to what we do, and also is an initiative where we also have a direct role. So the ESC Accelerator Pilot is really meant to support high risk and high potential companies. Typically, these companies will be younger and less mature than what our colleagues from the venture that will target. So that's why I'm saying that this initiative is really complementary to what the EIB does. The ESC Accelerator Pilot was launched a couple of years ago. And since October 2019, it offers not only grant, but also blended finance, which is a combination of grant and equity. So company can apply for grant only, and in that case, they can get up to 2.5 million. Or they can decide to apply for the blended finance, and in that case, they can receive a grant up to 2.5 million, but they can also receive an equity offer for an investment up to 15 million, 1.5. This is open to all the EU27 SMEs. You can apply as an individual project. It doesn't need to be as part of a consortium. And typically, the projects that they are looking at to finance through the ESC Accelerator Pilot is usually for projects that are in TRL 6 or above. SMEs can submit their application at any time. The EIC has basically continuously open call with regular cutoff dates up to 2020 when this pilot will finish. Hopefully under the new framework agreement and the new budget, there will be, of course, more money for this, but we are not sure yet. This is the expectation. There are 2 remaining calls for this year, one in May, which is dedicated to the Green Deal, and one in October, which is open to anyone. Similar to the EIB product, this is a bottom-up approach, so there is no sector limitation or innovation limitation. Any SME any innovative SME can apply, and if the project is considered innovative and with high potential, then it will get financing. The evaluation process is split in 2 parts. There is a first step where you submit your proposal in writing and is analyzed by an independent group of evaluators on a desktop review. And if you are successful after the step 1, then you are invited to pitch your project in front of a panel of experts. So it's a face-to-face interview, and typically 50% of the projects will be selected. The evaluation criteria are mainly 3 criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. Excellence is basically related to the innovative element of the project, so how innovative it is. Impact is more related to what is the market potential of this product. Can you really create a very new or large market? And the implementation is more related to the management team and the resources available to the company. Companies that receive an offer for a blended finance, where they have applied for a blended finance option, and they receive an offer from the EIC at the end of the step 2 at the panels, then they will enter into a due diligence process with the EIC fund. The EIC fund is a vehicle funded by the European Commission, and it will be the vehicle making the equity investment into the companies. The European Investment Bank is acting as investment advisor to the ESC fund, and what we will do is we will carry out the due diligence, we will identify potential co-investor, and we will propose a potential structure for the equity investment, but then will be submitted to the investment committee of the EIC fund for final approval. And finally, and very quickly, because I think I'm running out beyond my time, COVID-19, what has been the response from the bank? We have been trying to find solutions that can be implemented quickly. So the first announcement was done in March 16, I think, and is a package of 14 billion. dedicated mainly to SMEs and mid-caps to help them with liquidity and working capital measures. This is effectively a redirection of the EIB activity towards the response to the COVID-19 emergency. We typically do 60 to 80 billion volume in loans every year, and as a response to the COVID-19 emergency, we are aiming to target 40 billion of these to go towards supporting SMEs and mid-caps that are facing liquidity and working capital issues due to the COVID emergency. And the second measures that has been implemented, that is also been announced as part of the Eurogroup meeting a few weeks ago. This is additional funding that the EIB and additional resources that the EIB will have available. They will come in a form of a pan-European guarantee fund of 25 billion, which will be guaranteed by and funded by the EU member states, and that will aims to mobilize up to 200 billion of financing for SMEs. So this would be in addition to the normal activities that the EIB will do. The way it will be implemented is mainly through try to be implemented through existing products, because this is the easiest way and fastest way to get things on the ground. So with this, I'll conclude my presentation showing you my contact details, the contact details for the Innovation Finance Advisory team. So you have a mailbox that you can reach out, and also how to potentially submit your application directly to the venture debt team if you think you are ready to go ahead with that and you don't feel you need any advisory at this stage. So with this, I conclude my presentation. I will stop sharing my screen and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Alberto. I put up my camera as well. So thank you very much. First question is, could you please show your contact slide again? That is coming from Christoph, so that we record the session and make it available to you, and we will also share the contact details of Alberto.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, Alberto. The one question that came up is with regard to the COVID-19 crisis. So if a SME would receive problems or see problems in his current running business due to the crisis, what would be the right product for this SME to choose, or what should this SME do?
Okay, so as I said, I mean, obviously there are both. I mean, obviously in many countries there are initiatives at local level to support businesses. So I would say that probably would be my first venue to look at what are the initiatives at local level. If a company still cannot find what is a product that is suitable for them, as I say, the EIB is implementing these response measures. We actually already, the board has already approved 5 billion out of the 40 billion that we are planning to pump into the economy for supporting the companies, and so this will be available relatively soon. Also, our colleagues at the European Investment Fund have launched a call for guarantees. So they expect financial intermediaries, they will apply to receive these guarantees, but then they can deploy to support local businesses. So in a nutshell, most of these initiatives will be implemented in an indirect way, because it's for us I guess the easiest way to reach as many SMEs as possible. and at the same time to implement these measures in a relatively fast time. So the measures will be mainly guarantees that will be offered to banks and other financial institutions in order to provide additional liquidity to SMEs that are in need of. There will be additional intermediate loans to banks, again for the same reasons, and there will be asset ABS, so asset-backed securities purchasing programs that will allow companies and banks, will allow banks to sell their existing portfolios and create additional capacities on their balance sheet to provide additional liquidity to SMEs. So all and the majority of these measures will be implemented through our partners, so the banks and the national and local banks. And the best way to find out what are the products available in your country and from your bank is either to contact your bank directly and check if they have any product that is either related to COVID or existing products that the EIB is already offering through the local banks. Or check on the European Investment Bank website and the European Investment Fund website, where there is already a list of banks that have existing products with EIB, and I think there are also contacts of where you can reach out to have more information on this. So I mean, my suggestion is best you go to the bank that you deal with usually and check if they have any EIB products and if they are looking at getting any products related to COVID-19. And if not available yet, you can still tap into the existing products in any case. And if this doesn't work, then go on the website of the European Investment Bank or European Investment Fund and look at the list of banks that are working with us in your country and go to them.
Okay, and there's a question raised by Bojan, who said, are there instruments from EIB for SME initial investments?
For initial investment, for the seed stage.
I guess so. This is actually also a question raised by Christoph, but I guess this is related then to the European Innovation Council, or probably more to products from the European Investment Fund, I guess. Right?
Okay, so as I said, in the very early stage of the companies, so when companies are in seed phase, when they are in startup phase, and they are looking for investors either in the form of business angels or VCs, then these activities are mainly covered by the European Investment Fund, and the way that is done is indirectly. So they invest or they co-invest with business angels, or they invest in VC funds, and then you will need to make contacts with the VC funds out there or the business angels out there to present your case and get a financing from them. Similarly to the banks, in the European Investment Fund website, you will find a list of VCs and business angels that are working with the European Investment Fund, and you can start from there to identify what are the most relevant investors for you. The other venue is what the European Innovation Council. As I say, this is a very complementary initiative to the products already offered by both the European Investment Fund with their indirect activity and by the European Investment Bank with the venture debt product, and is really aiming to cover innovative projects in the earlier stage compared to what would be the typical target for the venture debt product at EIB.
Yeah, and you presented the venture debt product, which is, I understand, a direct product, right? So where the EIB directly interacts with an SME.
Yes.
So could you probably give a little bit more detail on your experience with this product? So if a company is interested in it, So how long does a typical financing process take? What is the first step? So would you need a business plan like in this, for startup financing, or what? How would it look like?
Okay, yeah. So basically, the process, I mean, will basically, okay. Typically, the due diligence process will take about 6 to 9 months. That's the typical time. It can be faster than that. It can be slower. It also depends on how responsive is the company to the questions and the requests from EIB for additional information. Typically, the process will start with a contact to the loan officers or through the EIB website, where you submit your request for venture debt product. Typically, you would attach a deck, a business plan, or a pitch deck for your company, and then you will be contacted by a loan officer to potentially discuss this and see if it's suitable for the EIB financing. The alternative way is to come through the advisory department. So the advisory will help you, I guess, guide you a bit more compared to a loan officer, to understand a bit more the process, to understand a bit more what are the requirements for the financing at EIB, and work with you and tell you, I guess, hopefully honestly right away if they feel you have a chance or not to get the financing. So it's I guess is a way to one, get some help with potentially your investment material, and two, get a sense if you are indeed a project that could fit with the venture debt. So these are, I guess, the two main entry points. As I said, the due diligence process typically is anything between 6 to 9 months. There is a more traditional, there will be two parts of this due diligence process, one carried out by our technical team. So we have a team of engineers and economists, but they will look at the technology and the economic impact and social impact of the investment. And then we have a more traditional team that will do through the loan officer, the financial assessment of the project and the risk assessment of the project in a more traditional way. So that's the way we work. The process is very similar to what you would have with any private investor. Is an interactive process. You have discussions, you have meetings, you have data rooms where you share information. So it's an interactive process very similar to what you would expect to have with any other investor.
Okay, thank you very much. So we received another question from Vincente Calvo, who asked, are there any specific instruments for photonics only? And I guess you could make it a little bit broader to deep technology company, which are very specific, as you know, because especially hardware investing or hardware companies are very capital intensive. Or is it planned that any instrument will come up in the near future for deep tech companies in Europe? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that is always on the agenda. I mean, it's a bit the question of do we need thematic instruments or not? And to be honest, it's a bit of a situation where it goes in trends, really. So there are periods where the solution seems really to be the dedicated instruments to a specific sector, which could be photonics or deep tech, and then you have periods where the opinion is a bit change a bit, and you go more in the direction of general products. because what you want to really focus is to promote innovation, broadly speaking, and you don't want to be too focused on a specific sector. So right now, I think there is no specific instruments for photonics. Looking at deep tech, I would say that obviously the venture debt is an instrument that could potentially fit for companies in the deep tech. They don't only invest in that. It's not exclusive, but they will obviously be interested in looking in deep tech. And similarly, the European Innovation Council also is looking in deep tech as a potential investment. So I would say that there isn't any dedicated instrument at the moment. If there is going to be in the future is still very much up to discussion. So is probably too early stage to say. But yeah, to answer shortly, the question is no. There is no dedicated instrument. Although I think there are instruments that could fit for deep tech.
I think it would be interesting for the future to probably have a dedicated session or webinar on the venture debt product and see if we could find, well, companies which have used this instrument, which are high tech companies, and so to make it tangible for our audience. But yeah, I think with this, since we are running out of time, I would say we close this webinar. Thank you very much, Alberto, for giving the information and attending, and thanks to all the attendees of this webinar. As said, we have recorded it and we will put it on our website. If you have any questions, please let us know. We will also forward these to Alberto. And yeah, the contact details of Alberto will also be made available to you.
Yep. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the invitation. Hope it was useful for everyone. And if there is any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to address it. Thank you. Yeah. Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.